Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Michael. Welcome to the channel. Today I wanted to make a video about the costs of traveling South America for 6 months. So I recently in 2022 just traveled for 6 months through South America. I did 4 countries. It included Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Peru. I kept track of literally everything that I spent my money on throughout the trip, but this is only within South America. This isn't my flights to and from because it's going to be different for everybody. And I just want to preface this by saying everybody's trip is going to be different. I know a lot of people do similar activities and live in similar ways while they're traveling, but everybody's is going to be different. So take it with a grain of salt. Think about what you would do compared to what I would do, because this is simply a representation of my own trip. And the activities and the way that I buy my food and everything, it might be different than the way that you would. So this is just a representation of my own trip. And I will also say that I will be doing this in Canadian dollars because I am Canadian, and obviously I did everything in Canadian dollars. So if you're from the States or if you're from the UK, then you can just swap it over and just swap over the currency exchange. Um, okay, so for a total of 177 days, just shy of 6 months, I spent a total of $10,759.04. That is a little bit over what I had budgeted, but it wasn't too far off. I didn't have a fully set budget when I arrived, um, because I knew I wasn't super tight on money, and I wanted to be able to do everything that I wanted to do. So I had a little bit of wiggle room, but I just had an idea in my head that what I wanted to spend, and it actually worked out to being $60.79 per day. Um, so yeah, it was a little bit over what I had initially thought, but I decided to do different activities while I was there that I didn't actually think I was going to do prior to landing in South America. So it did jumble around my budget a little bit, but yeah, so around just shy of $11,000, and I broke it down into 6 different categories. That was food, accommodation, transportation, tours and activities. I put together necessities, and then I did extras. So everybody's going to have extra expenses. If you don't think you are, then you're gonna find out pretty quick that you're going to have extra expenses. Um, Okay, so we'll start off with food. And originally I had broken down food into 3 categories as well. So it was 3 subcategories that were meals, snacks, and groceries, because I wasn't always cooking for myself. So I just wanted to see the difference between eating out and groceries, as well as snacks. Within snacks, I included all coffees, and because I've one of my main things when I go traveling is I really like to sit at cafes and journal and stuff like that. So I had snacks as their own category. But basically, for meals was my biggest one, and it was $2,134.67. Then it was snacks at $427.80, and then it was groceries at $379.72. Now, the reason my meals were so high is because when I travel, I tend to spend maybe to have all of the groceries I wanted to eat and be able to cook what I want to have all the time. But when you do have the meals, you also get to experience the local cuisine a lot more. So I did spend a lot of money on meals, essentially. And I mean, you can find very cheap meals as well. The menu del dia in all of these countries is maybe ranges anywhere from $2 to $5 or $6. So you can find cheap cheap meals, and that's a lunch that comes with a juice, a soup, and a main. Sometimes you can find it with a dessert as well. I just wanted to say as well that it was a little bit higher because at the end of my trip, I kind of got sick of eating the cheap food, and I had the money, so I started spending a little bit more. Okay, so that I know I went through those 3 categories a little bit fast on the price, but the total for food came out to $2,942.19. So that ended up being close to 30% of my budget was just in food, and I know that I could have gone cheaper if I did groceries and I looked for accommodation with kitchens all the time and I cooked my own food, or I just ate the cheapest I could find all the time. I know many travelers who eat far cheaper than I did, but I would say that that's pretty decent. I mean, I didn't eat expensive anywhere really. I'm not going out to fancy dinners or anything. So that was a pretty fair representation in my eyes. So yeah, $2,942.19. I will say that with the Menu del Dia, the only place that I found that I couldn't find like a really cheap one was Ecuador. But I think that was on me because I met plenty of other people who found it for like the cheapest one I found was maybe $4 or $5 for the juice, the soup, and the main. But I met others who like several other people who said that they found it for half that price. So I'm not sure if I'm not sure what happened there. I was sick in Ecuador and maybe I just wasn't putting in the effort to find that. So you can find that. You can spend less than that for sure. Second, we had accommodation. So the majority of my accommodation was in shared dorms, but I did split it between getting private rooms at some points. I stayed in hotels, and for my first month in Colombia, in Medellin, I actually spent a full month in an Airbnb. So I had it split up kind of between a little bit of everything, but the majority of the time I was in dorms within hostels. And this is something again where you can save a lot of money if you're willing to do something like couch surfing or doing some sort of volunteer work. Like you can save this money on hostels or hotels and stuff as well. And the reasons I spent a little bit more is because I just wanted to. Um, with the hostels, it's much better to meet people. I liked having the Airbnb because I had the kitchen and everything, but I met hardly anybody. So the hostels are a great way to meet people. So it's my preferred method of getting accommodation as well. So for that total for accommodation, I spent $2,079.39, which was also that would have been my second largest spending. So first was meals, second accommodation. Excuse me. For the third category, we had transportation. So I include everything in this. This is cabs, tuk-tuks, domestic flights, trains, buses, everything, boats, ferries, um, is everything. So this one actually turned out to be, this was more than I anticipated on spending on transportation. It ended up being $1,649.09, but it was more because when I got to Ecuador, I actually decided to go to the Galapagos Islands, and the return flights in Ecuador for the Galapagos Islands were $600 in itself. So almost half of my um, transportation budget was in Ecuador because I decided to go to the Galapagos. If you decide not to go there, you can save a big chunk of money, but it was incredible. Easily my favorite thing in Ecuador. But yeah, that does tack on quite a bit. What else did we have after? So the fourth category was tours and activities, and now this one is something that can be it's completely dependent on what you want to do. Like what the things that I want to do you may have no interest in whatsoever. Like I like going on multi-day hikes. I am an avid scuba diver. I went for 2 weeks of Spanish lessons in Cusco. Like these are all things that you don't necessarily have to do, but it was stuff that I spent my money on and I tracked. But this is something that can be completely customizable to your trip and how you want to do your trip. But basically, for tours and activities, I spent $2,108.38 in total. So that was, like I said, that's the hikes, that's the Spanish lessons, scuba diving, Salcantay trek to Machu Picchu, which I highly recommend, snorkel trips in the Galapagos. And also within tours and activities, I included all of the entrance prices. So this is something that they don't really tell you before you go there, but anytime that I shouldn't say anytime, but most of the time in South America, I found that if you book a tour to some sort of national park or something like that, something similar, you pay for the tour or you pay for the activity, but then you don't pay for the entrance fee until you get there. So there's always going to be an extra fee when you get there, which is not priced in. They don't charge you for it ahead of time, which I think is a little bit silly. Some do, but most of the time you have to pay it extra. So I included that in tours and activities because to me, that is part of the tour and activity. Okay. So after that, Category number 5, I had necessities. Now, again, this is going to be dependent on you, but for me, this was anything from I included toiletries, laundry, medical expenses. I ended up in the ER twice in both Colombia and Ecuador, um, and I just paid it out of pocket. So I included that in there as well. And then also I included this as using the bathroom, because in most of these places, or I shouldn't say most, but a majority of these places, you have to pay to use the bathroom. It's like 1 peso here, 5 pesos there, whatever. So that's all included in there. And that ended up being totaled to $486.33 for necessities and all that. Okay, and then lastly, I had extras. So whether you think you're going to have extras or not, you're going to have extras. There's always going to be something that you want to buy, like, oh, you want to buy this little bracelet there, you want to get a gift for your mom, or you want to get a t-shirt or a pair of shoes, or whatever it may be. There's always going to be extras. So my extras ended up totaling to $1,478.51 for my extras. And now I came back close to Christmas, so like right before Christmas. So I was buying gifts in the extras, which again is 1,478.51. Yeah, so that's basically the breakdown of everything that I spent my money on. The average cost per day, like I said at the beginning of this video, was $60.79. My initial budget in my mind was somewhere around 50 to 60. Like I said, I didn't have it fully broken down, but that was just sort of what I had in my mind of what I would like to spend. So it ended up being a little bit more, but I truly believe it's because I decided to go to the Galapagos, and that 8 days in the Galapagos ended up being about approximately close to like a month of what I thought my budget would be, because it's expensive. It's amazing, but it is expensive. And I said this earlier as well, but there are so many different ways that you can travel. So my budget can be completely different than yours. Like if you're traveling with somebody, then you get to split all those costs of most of the transportation, tuk-tuks, cabs, that sort of thing. You can split accommodation if you're with your partner, because you can get to stay in the same room and all of this. So there are different, and if you're in a bigger group, you get to save on tours and activities generally, because you're bringing more people to give you a better price. So there are different ways. So you got to think about how you want to travel. If you want to travel really cheap, there are 100% ways. Take advantage of all the free stuff, free walking tours, free breakfasts. Make sure that you look into volunteering opportunities, because generally they'll give you some food as well as the accommodation, so that you can save on both accommodation and on your food. So as well as if you don't want to do the volunteer, but you just go into a city for 2 or 3 days, you can check out couch surfing. And I know several people who do this all the time, and they quite like it. You meet a lot of interesting people, but be smart about how you do it. Make sure that you're vetting all of the people that you're going through and having full conversations with them before you just rock up at their place and decide to spend the night. But yeah, you can save a lot more money if you want to go that route. Or if you want, you can spend a lot more money. You can have a far more luxurious trip than I had as well. You can do more activities. You can stay in better accommodations. You can have better meals all of the time. So it all depends on how you want to travel. I would say this is somewhere in the mid range, where I wasn't fully freaking out about my budget. I wasn't being really picky about how I wanted to do things, but I was trying to save some money, because I didn't want to just throw money away as well. So I feel like this is a decent little mid-range budget for what you can do South America in 6 months. And it's 4 countries as well. I will say that, like I had mentioned before, it's Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. There are other countries, obviously, Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, all of them. But they will be somewhat similar. You'll have to tweak it just a little bit. But this is a very good representation of South America as a whole, from the people that I've talked to and traveled to the other countries as well. And now I will make a full cost breakdown of each country as well. Bow, bow, bow. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. And yeah, so I will make a video of each cost breakdown. And another thing I will say is the reason that I only went to 4 countries and I didn't do any more, I didn't do Chile or Argentina, is because I like to go to a country and spend a good amount of time there. So the shortest country for me was Bolivia, and that was still 3 weeks. And I would have stayed longer because Bolivia is absolutely incredible. But I had to come back for Christmas. I will also say, just a little fun fact, my cheapest country was Colombia. My most expensive was Ecuador. And that was definitely, even without the Galapagos, I feel like Ecuador is more expensive. I had trouble finding the cheaper meals, and they were using the US dollar. So it's the exchange for me as a Canadian was atrocious at the time. But yeah, so I hope that that helped you out with your planning to South America. If you have any questions, please leave them below. Ask me, send me a message. If I can help, I would for sure love to try and help you. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, join the journey. I will be making, like I said, I'll make multiple videos of each country, as well as some few other tips, tricks, packing videos, things like that. So if that interests you at all, please join along for the journey. And thanks for watching.